strength. They actually just sort of just casually they called it just fitness trainer.
Okay.
It was fitness trainer. Just the official designation actually was fitness trainer at the Lions. And then what happened was then, because then it gave me room to add extra people in.
Okay,
so if
100%.
so that I could have a strength consultant, I could have a flexibility consultant and things like that.
Okay, fantastic. So there we go, we're live. And so, Coach, thanks for coming in.
Thanks
We got
for
our
having me.
audio levels are good. I should have my monitoring headphones, but I always forget those. We've stuck you in the corner in the back of the gym, but the reason for that is there was no one here to help me move this table. The last time someone moved it on their own, they broke the legs on it.
Oh, good grief.
So I fixed that. But Coach, you've coached in a lot of weird places, particularly traveling. So firstly, it's awesome to have you here. It's good to see you
Thanks
again.
for having me.
We got to spend a bit of time together a couple of years ago, which was absolutely wonderful. And I'm just going to activate comments here. So if I miss them, you can give me a shout as well if you see them. Right there we go. So people can comment. So we are live. People can drop their comments down below in the comment section, and we can respond to that.
Okay.
We may get comments, we may not. It is sort of a little bit of a middle time of day, but we'll start to share this stuff. I'm sure we start to share this a little bit more on the Indian subcontinent, and that part of the world, you're going to be getting a lot of people coming in and commenting. So, Coach, can you give us a little bit of a rundown on who you are, a little bit of your background?
Okay.
Let's start from the time you were causing trouble in Northview High School.
Oh, good
and
grief.
Highlands North Boys
Yes,
and in the
okay.
Waverley Girls. Okay.
Basically where I went to school at Northview, and sports-wise, pretty much jack of all trades, master of not too many of them.
Right.
And then after I came back from the army, I did optometry, and I was playing league in a couple of sports, and then sort of as things passed, got into the gym game, and I was convinced by somebody to go for a course which was run by Universal in the States to get to know about the gym world, and it proliferated from there. Eventually, I started training professionals from about 1992, started with South Africa's top women's squash player, which then attracted a lot of other top players. Eventually, I was training most of South Africa's top players.
Okay.
And then 1994, Clive Rice, late Clive Rice, he reasoned that if a person trains squash players, they know what they're doing because squash players are fit. So could I get involved in cricket?
Yeah.
So I went to see him and we chatted, and I got involved with the National Academy. And then independently, 6 months later, I got a call from Ray Jennings' wife. Would I be prepared to train the Lions cricketers? Right. And then I was there. In the first session, I went to see Ray. I said to him, look, I'll show you what I've got. You don't like it, then just kick me out.
Yeah.
And, well, they kicked me out 24 years later. So all good. And right now, when I was 60, I left Gauteng cricket. And now, age 65, I'm just seeing people privately. I consult from barbell bullies. I see some people at their homes, and basically just try to keep myself out of mischief.
Okay. So, keep yourself safe from Lynn. So, you were practicing in optometry.
Yes, I was in private practice for 20 years.
So, what made you make that jump? It is quite a switch, and I think sort of private practice in optometry is quite secure because you have a good recurring base. What was the motivating factor to move?
I suppose passion, really. I started training athletes while I was still an optometrist, and the first one was quite by surprise. My sister-in-law came back. She comes from a very unsporting family, and she came back from school one day and said, well, I just won my house trials as a sprinter, and I've been chosen for the school team. Can you teach me how to sprint?
Right.
And it sort of went from there. And then, having a bit of an athletics background myself, I was able to help her out. And then the school asked me if I could help them out, and it went from there.
Okay.
And then when I did the courses, I was still a practicing optometrist. And then in the fitness game, I did a number of courses, and it drew me in because luckily I was in an environment where I got asked to help people. And then I found it was a lot more fun doing that than testing people's eyes, basically.
Number one or number two? Number one,
Well,
two,
basically
number
that's it. You know,
Yeah,
can you read the
okay.
bottom line? Yeah.
Yeah, 100%. Yeah, it's made in China. Fantastic, coach. And I mean, you've 24 years with the one sporting team. You must have seen a lot of changes coming through that.
Oh, yes.
And a lot of evolution and within the players as well. Do you have any fun stories you'd like to share?
How long have you got?
Yep. I'll tell you now, the battery's on 75%. So about 16 hours.
Oh, wow.
Yep.
Yeah, there was a quantum shift from when I first got there. Look, there's been evolution and there's been devolution as well.
Right.
When I first got there, this whole concept of strength training was totally alien to cricket. You know, I'd go there and probably the biggest weights that they'd ever lifted in their lives were 2-kilogram dumbbells and doing alternate curls.
Okay, oh my word.
And then Ray Jennings said, well, we don't have a gym here. I'll organise, you can go to one of the Virgin Actives and take the guys there. And once we got into it, they got into it. Once they realised why we were doing it, because of course all the snide comments came out at first was, well, a bat doesn't weigh very much. Why do we have to do weights?
Yeah.
There are no hills on a cricket field. Why do we have to do hills?
Yes.
And then once they started realising that there's methods to it,
Yes.
and especially once they learned the value of strength, and most of the success stories had a base of strength and a base more of speed.
Yes.
So really what happened is, you know, we got going, and I think got a bit of a name. We didn't have a great team at the time. There were better teams than us technically, but we got guys who came through quite nicely. And I'd always sort of get from the other trainers, oh, you're the guy who's doing that Palo, Pardo, Pio, what are those jump things?
Yes.
You know, that's the sort of thing I'd get. And,
Pidometrics.
you know, why are you doing Olympic lifts? Which part of their body are you trying to train? And then you have to, okay, let me explain this to you.
What does this work?
Exactly.
Right.
So, and then the other thing that often happens in those times is that, unfortunately, what does happen, and I don't think cricket's the only sport responsible for this, is that excellence isn't always rated as much as obedience.
Yes. Okay.
So,
right.
so what happened was the one.
Can you explain that a bit?
Sure. Is that I'll explain it with a little story that happened. Was we had a new decent player coming to us, name of Daryl Cullinan, and we thought,
sounds familiar. I've heard it once.
Yeah, it's so anyway. So Daryl came along, and he really took to my training, and he was a decent athlete. And then what happened was that the Proteas at the time had to go and do a beep test, the old infamous beep test.
Yes.
And Daryl was sort of in the bottom half because he carried a bit of weight because he's an ex-rugby player as well.
Right.
And the guy who was the top dog was Hansi, and then Nicky Boyer just behind him.
Right.
So what happened was they did it, and I was there, and Daryl came third, right behind Hansi and Nicky Boyer.
Okay.
He beat Gary Kirsten, he beat John T. Rhodes, he beat all the luminaries. So their trainer didn't see this really as an evolution. Oh, wow, how did this happen? This is amazing. He thought of this as a threat. What's happening?
Okay.
Is this guy going to get my job? So it's got a bit ugly at times, and at times, and there what was happening as well was the accusation was, but you're not following the usual procedures that we found. And I had to explain myself and say, I draw a lot of my knowledge from other sports because I've been overseas. I've learnt about other sports. I'm an avid reader. I'm an avid asker. I ask a lot. I'm very curious.
Absolutely.
Now, what happens with a lot of people, they think, you must have seen it yourself. You're curious and you ask, and they treat you like you're an imbecile. Now, I was the guy who was curious and asked. And I learnt a lot of stuff from American football, from baseball, from soccer, from a number of other sports, from athletics. And then the first thing was they took it as a threat, like I said. And so the obedient way was do it their way, which at the time was modified rehab, because the people who were doing it were biokineticists, and everything was done with what you would do with a rehab patient, but now make it a little harder.
Yes.
And the trouble was with that, as I'm sure you found as well, it just doesn't get people to the levels that you want them.
Yeah, absolutely.
So, yeah, and then it went from there.
Okay. So the guys, I mean, there is a big issue that we've seen with you need to be compliant to stay in the position, right? Mm-hmm. And I mean, something that you're not well renowned for.
No, unfortunately.
So I think if we talk about strength and if we take it back a bit, so you're getting all of the cricketers from primary school, high school, they're going through primary, high school, maybe varsity, and then into you. Where do you see within high school, even primary school level, the changes can be made to enhance the athlete?
I've had to deal with this quite a lot because I've had 10-year-olds dropped at my doorstep. And this is one thing that I've found is that if you're going to get them over there, if possible, it has to be enjoyable. Mm-hmm. Sometimes it's not always going to be enjoyable, so it has to at least be a challenge.
Yes, 100%.
And it has to be measurable. So if you put figures on the wall, you put something up on the chalkboard and they can see it, then they want to go for it. Nobody likes a 40-second row.
Yeah.
But if they do a 40-second row and they see that their first effort is 150 meters, and you say, right, this is your last set, they are going to try and beat it.
Absolutely. Particularly if their mates are beating them.
Yes.
Yeah.
And as far as the strength goes, and this is something I've had to learn. And when I first met you, I hadn't learned this yet. I was always thinking the numbers, build up the reps, and so on. But I found that the one thing that they all can identify with and they love and they're going to talk about and they're going to the corner and they're going to go, yes, is the 1 rep max.
Yep, absolutely. 100%.
And people, and to take a 13 or a 14-year-old, people will think, 1 rep max, you can't do that. Yet people will allow youngsters to do pull-ups. What are you lifting with a pull-up? You're lifting your body weight.
Yep.
And then they take a couple of 2-kilogram dumbbells. Oh, no, you're going to stunt their growth. Well, it doesn't quite work like that.
No, and I think that's a big misnomer on that point, where jumping off a box or 2 steps, you're landing with 2 to 3 times body weight.
Yes.
Which is far more than you're going to be able to lift. So jumping and landing hard is more damaging to growth plates than lifting weights could ever be.
And that's where the coaching comes in, and that's where the careful coaching comes
100%.
in. So one thing that I do is I've personally found the easiest lift to start with in terms of weight is a deadlift.
Yeah.
In terms of reps, overhead lifts, bench press, squats, of course. But squats I tend to be a bit conservative with in the beginning. But deadlifts, lifting something off the floor, it's something people can identify with.
Yes.
And I've gotten a lot better at teaching it than I ever used to be.
Awesome.
And now I find that I am getting 14-year-olds who can lift 100 plus 120.
Yeah.
And I think we've all had that experience. And you talk about stories. We had a thing once with one of the top private schools. I had a youngster coming in, decent cricketer, but his mother said he's not a very confident guy. He tends, and he's had a bit of trouble hitting the ball off the square. So can I just make him a bit stronger?
Right.
So I said, look, let's just get him started. Let's do. And in those days, I did a very basic thing.
Yes.
We did we did dumbbell press, and we do we do kettlebell squats and things like that. And then I got a call from the head of cricket from the school 3 weeks later. Well, what have you done to this guy? So I thought, oh my God, have I injured him?
Yeah.
He says, no, this guy's hitting sixes. He says he's never hit a six in his life. Now he hits 3 sixes in 1 over. He says, please, can you come to the school and show us what you're doing?
Brilliant.
So I said, well, I've given him a basic weight training program. But here's the thing, is the first day he walked in, it would be a case he walks into the gym and sort of looks around and there's a Protea and there's a Lions player and sort of sneaks through to the change room. By week 3, how's it, Timber? How's it, Keji? High fives. Russie, how's it, my mate? Sort of thing. So, of course, he's going to go back to school and he is the man.
The boyki.
And
that also translates through to how he's playing on the field.
And that's exactly it. Now, all of a sudden, confident guy, off he's going. There's an interesting story about that that I've got with a professional cricketer.
Right.
It's, shall I tell it now?
Yeah, please. Let's do it.
So one of our cricketers whose net worth is well over 200 million, Chris Morris. Chris eventually retired from playing for his country, and he's gone, and then eventually retired altogether. But there was a time, and Chris was never a great trainer. He was a very talented cricketer. But in terms of training, he was middle of the road. So what I used to do with the Lions, I'd set up circuits for the guys. I'd look at the groups and I'd decide, here's a good training partner for you, and you guys could do this. You need more leg work, you need more speed work, you need more volume, etc. So anyway, with him, I was lecturing at the time for London Business Management School in sports management. So I had some students coming to the gym because it's always better to do it practically rather than doing it in a classroom and say, do this, do that. So what happened was that some wanted to do boxing with me, and then the others I put down in the gym with 4 other cricketers who just happened to be there. I'm sure no one's heard of them: Quinton de Kock, Aaron Pangiso, Chris Morris, Malcolm Nofal. So it just so happens that the guy who I paired with Chris Morris to do a bit of a program was a physique athlete.
Okay.
And this guy was magnificent. He had a build, man, probably 4% body fat in this T-vest. And Chris called me aside and he said, listen, he said, can't you give me somebody else to train with? I said, look, worst case scenario. I said, just you go lighter. He can go heavier. You do your thing. So I went upstairs, I did the boxing with the guys. I thought 15 minutes later, let me go downstairs and check. So there's this physique athlete, and he's sitting on the edge of the bench, and he's going, oh my God, I want to die. Oh my God, I want to die. Oh my God. And Chris is like standing with his arm over him and saying, no, come on, we can manage another set. You'll be okay. Don't worry, you'll be fine. So, and then after then they sorted themselves out. So we had a little lecture afterwards. So, like the guy said, he can't believe it because here's the skinny guy. He thought he was going to out-train him. And I said, you've got to realize you're working with a professional. This is what he does. It's not a hobby. This is what he does. Whatever he looks like, he is doing this to the best of his capacity. He's got chances. He's got chance to recover. He's got other training to do, and it's a completely different mindset.
Right.
Well, I'll tell you what happened from that day onwards. Chris Morris was the same as that other kid. From there, boy, he was unstoppable.
Love it. Love it. Yeah.
So
fantastic. So, Coach, we're speaking of that, working with pro athletes. So I know when we worked together, and you were kind enough to bring me in as what do we call me, a strength consultant. Strength consultant. It was, we're never pushing. Maybe we shouldn't tell the guys this, but pushing them to their potential 1 rep max. It was always around about 85%, just to keep them safe, because you're working with hundreds of millions of rands worth of assets.
Plus it's in season, virtually.
And it's in season. So I mean, that could be devastating. How do you deal with that pressure? I know there's, we can say we're confident, we're competent, we know our stuff, but there's always a chance. So how do you deal with that? And I think maybe if you could answer that from the point of view of speaking to younger coaches,
The biggest thing with this is the whole buy-in from the other staff is generally, if you've got a system where coaches are confident in your ability, management's confident in your ability, then they realize there are going to be times when bad things happen. You can't stop. Obviously, the finger breaks and that. There's nothing you can do about that. Person tearing his hamstring running for a ball, that's a disaster. That you don't want. And that maybe happened once or twice in my career. And often it was due to fatigue. And as long as they can understand
what happened and why,
then it's okay. But really, in terms of awareness, that is the biggest thing. Is that there needs to be a wider understanding from the underlying, from the coaches who are coming up in the system of exactly what you're doing. And there are guys who are really good at that, and there are guys who buy into it, and there are others who don't. And the guys who don't, invariably there's a bad experience, or somebody told them, no, do it this way, now you're doing it a different way. My friend at the commercial gym says this is the way you should train cricketers, and you're not doing it that way, therefore you're wrong. So there's a lot of baggage around with that, which you sometimes have to deal with. And you find after a while you get a certain reputation. And your reputation will either be as a hard ass, and or we do things in a certain way, and sometimes it's good. And you might remember once we had an incident where the CEO said he can't understand. One of the players said that every week at another province they'd kill the players. They just absolutely kill the players once a week. Why didn't we do it? And he said that collectively to you and me. And we were both saying, well, that's not the point of training.
Correct.
The point of training is build up and improvement.
Yeah.
And it's because...
And not doing for the sake of doing.
Well, yes. And then it became a tick box thing.
Yeah.
Which has become quite common with that.
If we talk about administrators, is your opinion that they should all be in the gym with you to experience the training?
It would be nice. It's not always going to happen.
Yeah.
Because I think we've seen this ourselves. I keep myself fit because I want to make other people fit.
Yeah.
I'm not going to go and speak from my ivory tower and tell you what to do if I can't do it myself.
Yeah, 100%.
So
you saw that picture of the pull-ups. Yeah.
So in terms of the administrators, yes, you did have a few who'd come through, and generally they'd feel very uncomfortable outside of their own comfort zone. Now, when I was younger, this is what I used to do, and then when you try and show them stuff, some are very responsive, some aren't.
Right.
And then there are others who will say flat, I'm an administrator, that's not my job. So to give you an idea, it's of the sort of thing that will happen. And this
Can I
is
get
purely,
you another one?
I'm good, thanks.
Right, okay, yep.
And this is this is so typical. So what happened? We had a coach.
I'm listening. I'm just actually changing your name here because I made a boo-boo. I didn't put coach in front.
No, that's fine. As is, I like it like that.
Yeah. That's nice. My podcast.
Oh, good grief. Okay. You win.
Thank you, coach.
Okay.
Done. Better.
So what happened? We had a coach who decided he needed to get messages through to players, and this was in the early days. This was in the early 20s.
Right.
So he said what he's going to do is he's going to send the physio down with instructions. But what he wants the players to do is he wants them every so often to feign an injury.
Okay.
Like go down and rub your hamstring or something so the physio can go and take a look and give instructions. Which is all very good. Only problem was, then I get a call from the CEO. Why are so many people getting injured? Are you overtraining them? Are you undertraining them? So I said, well, I'll get the physio to send you a report. So I put it on his lap. So he said, I'll get the coach to send you a report.
Okay.
And then the coach sort of cleared it up, thank God. But it's...
So if we're getting administrators and, not forcing anyone to train, but, physical exercise training, it's good physically, it's good mentally, it's good emotionally, all of these things. If the administrators, if everybody involved in the team was training with the team or training like the team trains, then there would be a much deeper understanding of what's happening and the progress being made, because they would see the progress within themselves, right? So if we're speaking to younger coaches, what advice would you give to younger coaches wanting to build a career in sport, given that you're working within sports leagues or within administration bodies and that? How do they say, be a hard ass, be a bit softer? What would your advice to them be? Because you stuck it out with a professional sports team for 24 years. I mean, I don't know of many other coaches or any other coaches that have done that. Yeah?
Okay, first thing is, and this is what I tell my students, is don't think that when you have got the book knowledge that you've arrived.
Yeah, absolutely.
You have to go out there. You have to see how different people work. You have to ask questions. Be prepared for rebuffs. Be prepared for big egos. Be prepared for people to treat you like you're a grade one. But get the knowledge. Get the knowledge, apply it. Go and try things. Go and do stuff. And what I said earlier about youngsters is whatever you do with them, make it measurable. If you can make it fun, fantastic. Make it fun. If you can't, make it challenging. Give them a bit of a challenge. Don't respond with anger when things go wrong.
Right.
Respond with disappointment.
Okay.
Because they really want to show you that they've got
yes,
it.
yes,
and if you're angry with them, they're just going to get the hell in. They're just going to think, "What am I doing here? I want to get out of here."
Right.
But if you show them a bit of disappointment, then they will always say, "Okay, I'm going to get better. I'm going to work at it."
Push it and work on it.
And then I've actually found it with the Lions. Even the one time we did a little running drill, and they were getting 70 seconds or whatever it was the time, I can't remember. And I said, "Oh, guys, I expected at least one set on 65." And I sort of almost as a voice, "Now, come on, guys, let's do this. We can do it. We can do it. Can we try for 62? Oh, yeah, go for it. That's fine. Okay. No, I'll be very happy. I don't know if you've got much energy left after all of that, but let's give it a go." And Stu's nuts, everybody came in.
Okay, fantastic.
So it's as long as it's, we've heard it all before, the positive reinforcement.
Yeah.
But mainly just getting them there to actually read.
Right.
Explore, and don't only explore inside the sport, look outside the sport. I used to always say to my students is, if you think that you're a hotshot trainer, if you can't go to a random school's under 13 netball practice and watch the whole practice and not learn something, you shouldn't be there.
100%.
You're wasting your time.
Yeah, absolutely. And then from an administrative point or an administrator point of view, how should the younger coaches navigate that?
You're very much at the mercy of the system. It's it's once again, you have to be a bit pragmatic with it and realize that something that I've been accused of, I'll tell you the story when I was accused of this. But once again, the obedience and excellence, you have to err on the obedience first. And sometimes you have to, and if you are going to disagree, you have to come with a good case.
So it's almost like earn the right not to agree.
Yes. So my little story with this was at a conference where we had this was at a Cricket South Africa medical conference.
Right.
So we had one of the hotshot bios writing up on the board, heavyweight training, Olympic lifts, plyometrics. And then he put a cross through each of those.
Right.
And then he said, those are all contraindicated for cricket. So up goes my hand.
Yeah.
And I said, why?
Yeah.
So he says, too high risk. So what I said to him was, so you can picture this, is I said to him, well, clearly it's too high risk for you because you don't know how to teach it properly. Why don't you come up to Joburg and let me show you how to do all these things properly? Oh, man.
Yeah.
So one of the other delegates said to me, Jeff, if I've ever seen a career shortening move, that was it.
Yes, yeah.
And boy, oh boy, I was from the big honcho, the big head. The next day I got a whole letter and reprimanding me. But next day I went on.
But you see, these are the things that I find fascinating. But I suppose it is how the world is working. But you're offering to help him.
Well, yes.
Come and upskill. Like we know Rodney Anthony, and Rodney I think has gone to the universities or to work with the bios sometimes to teach the guys how to squat. You bring in an expert.
Yes,
and
exactly,
that's
100%.
So, Olympic lifting can be terrible if it's not done correctly. If it's done correctly, I know you can brutalize the military with a broomstick, just doing Olympic lifting lifts. And all of these different things, plyometrics and, any weight training, we need that resistance training because strength is the mother skill. Our balance,
Plus
coordination,
strength
stamina.
is what is going to give you the longevity.
Yep, that's it.
That's an interesting thing. Sorry to interrupt you,
No.
Is I've had, if I think back on my career, is there have been a few fast bowlers who have had to retire before they've reached the age of 30. Some at 26, 27.
Wow.
And going back at them, not one of them did strength training. They all had an aversion, and some had an outward aversion, and they would refuse point blank to do strength training. Not one single one who retired early.
Sure.
And yet, I've got another guy. He's now the assistant coach of Bangladesh.
Okay.
When we first went to that first excursion to a Virgin Active, and our cardio was pushing a car up a hill.
Yeah.
But we went into the gym, and I showed them how to do a military press.
So, Coach, I hope you know whose car it was. You didn't just randomly pick a car. Sorry.
Sorry about that. We're on air.
Moving along.
So anyway, I had your normal bar with 30 kilograms,
Yeah.
so I showed them how to do a military press. So here I get this guy who's taller than me, and he can't do it. And he puts the weight down, and he says to me, he looks down at me, and he says, one day I'm going to be stronger than you. And I said to him, don't set your sights so low. Well, this guy is now 48 years old. He's a well-known cricket coach, and he's the number 4 CrossFit Masters athlete in Britain.
Beautiful. There you
So,
go.
you know, just to see, and his deadlifts are now in the 230s, 240,
Okay,
which for a
fantastic.
non-lifter isn't bad.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely.
So to see things like that, and to see guys, you know, who've gotten strong, that and they've realized that as they've gotten older, how
Yeah.
important it is. But those early days, I mean, I once had a case of a buyer from a medical center. I get a call. I'm on the road. I get a call. You don't know how to train cricketers. Come here now. And that was from one of the coaches. And I arrive and there's this buyer, and he's saying, no, you're doing it all wrong. And we had a bit of a discussion, which eventually became a bit of an argument. And one of our top sports physicians was trying to intervene with this, but he wanted to give them rehab. And this was the problem. So I said, but we're still getting the injuries, we're still getting the problems. And the guys who are getting stronger aren't having those same
issues.
outcomes.
Yeah, yeah.
So, yeah. So
I mean, it's such a valid point, because it comes down to, and as you said when we started chatting, it's the thirst for knowledge and information that makes you far more effective. If people are not willing to listen, you're doing it wrong this way, should be, you know, not willing to listen or learn or try new things. Stuff evolves, and I think what we find is we start out with a knowledge base here, and we learn, we get the basics down, and then we learn all the wonderful supplementary extra stuff, and then it ultimately brings us back to understanding the basics and then
that
applying
is
the
it.
basics.
I am the basics man.
You know, that's it. Yeah.
It's an interesting thing. Is my first cousin is a guy by the name of Ian Furr. He's the guy who started Sorbet, and he's an incredible businessman. He's written books on customer care and that. He was saying to me is that, you know, he's come across so often people who've got a lot of experience, but all they're doing is they're repeating their initial. So they say, it's all very well to say you've got 40 years experience. What you're actually saying is you got 1 year experience,
40
repeated
times.
39 times.
Yes.
And he made a valid point, because a lot of them are like that. There are people who, this is what I learnt, this is how I'm set. And meantime, most of us, we're on this path. Look, I've had it a lot of times when I comment on things. Yes, well, you've been doing it for so long, we don't do things the way that we did in those days. And I say, I learned things yesterday that I didn't know.
Yes.
You train at any powerlifting gym, because the basic lifts, the corrections are repeated so many times. You learn every day.
Yeah.
I will go there this afternoon, see my clients, and I'll watch Henk de Wet training somebody and coaching somebody, and I will see something, and I'll go think, great idea.
Yes.
I'll to be here with you. I'll see you doing something, like when you were training my son. You know, what a great idea. I must try that, you know.
Got those hammies to fire. Yeah.
Oh, he
Or
did
the weights and
eventually.
meals, yeah. So awesome. So we're looking at speaking sort of your son and younger athletes and sportsmen. What would your advice be for younger athletes and maybe parents of younger athletes looking to get their athletes, their kids to the next level, or it's a young athlete wanting to get to the next level?
Okay, let me get this off my chest.
Then I want to ask this to you on twofold questions.
Yes.
All right. One for those who have the opportunity to train with coaches, and those who are from disadvantaged communities who may only have body weight as an example.
Yes.
Okay.
Okay. Firstly is to young parents. The fact that your 10-year-old son has got the same skills that David Beckham had at the same age, or the fact that your son is scoring centuries for a co-ed school means nothing. Nada calamari. Doesn't mean a thing.
Right.
Let them enjoy their sport and let them grow.
Don't live your dreams through your child.
Stop this vicarious stuff. And the other thing is stop throwing 5 coaches at them, which I've seen a lot of.
Right.
It's let them develop. If you can see the person is passionate, then if they need coaching, give them a coach. But then it goes to ridiculous extents where you'll get a top coach saying to a parent, go build a net in your backyard because your son's that good. Meantime, the poor little guy is overweight and 10 years old, and it's going to cost the guy an absolute fortune, and he's actually considering doing it until you say to him, well, who's going to feed him?
Yeah.
Oh, never thought of that. Maybe I'll get another coach.
Yes.
So,
Okay.
you know,
Yeah.
and so that's the first thing is rather have your kids come and say, wow, I had a great time. I had a whale of time. I had a whale of a
Yes.
time.
Yes.
Don't worry so much if they don't get picked. If they get picked one year for the areas team and not the next year, it's fine. Because as we've both seen, is what people don't realize is the need to build up that resilience and the need to overcome failure.
Yes.
The best special forces in the world will not accept somebody if they've never failed.
Yeah.
Because, of course, what's going to happen, you drop them off in the middle of the desert and they've never failed, they're not going to know how to cope because everything's dropped given to them on a silver platter. So they need to learn how to deal with it. They've got to be able to go back to school, not feel ashamed that they didn't get into the area team. Actually, it means nothing at the end of the day. I'll find you 10 guys who are playing top-level cricket who weren't even playing when they were 10 years old.
Right.
So that's the first thing. Now, as far as training's concerned, it's if your child is active and they are able to play on swings and play on monkey bars and do stuff, great.
Like kids.
Yes.
Yeah.
One of the first things I did with my youngster was I got him to do a martial art. I got him to do judo because he was at the school, and it was great because from judo
the best grounding.
he could he learned basic skills and he could work from there. So at least when he got to you, then he wasn't completely unfamiliar.
Yes.
And that's the first thing. Do they need to train? Do they need to go to a gym and do weights? It is nice if it can be done, and I think you've recently been to a seminar with some of the top powerlifting coaches in Europe, and they actually advocated teach them early, let them compete late, but let them learn early. Learn the basics, learn how to brace, learn where your feet should go, learn your head position, learn how your lower back should work. And once you've got that base, and then if they can go into the gyms, and I understand with the gyms being reticent to take them because of the macho factor. He's lifting so much, I'm going to show him what I can lift. You know, if you can overcome that, that's why it's good to have a personal trainer.
Yeah, absolutely.
That's great. If left to their own devices, if they're mature enough, that's great. If they're not, it's obviously going to be a problem. But most certainly, I do advocate weight training from a young age.
You know, it's such a valid point, and it's something. Some of the workshops that we're running at the moment are for schools, where we teach them the lifting fundamentals and programming, and how not to be affected by social media. Because when you say guys are walking into the gym, and I'll show them, they're now being exposed to that from a social media side.
Exactly.
Where let's try this, and then and guys are getting injured and very serious injuries. You know, your sort of the capsules, the membrane around your spine that's holding everything in. Where you continue to stretch that over time, it becomes looser, and it's not something that can be repaired, and you're running a huge risk of a slip disc. And I think you've seen at competitions some of the younger lifters who are lifting with completely rounded backs, and it's terrifying. You know, I've seen Henk's face at a couple of comps where someone is lifting and not one of his guys, and they're like, sure, you might get the weight up, and you're young, but you're running a long-term injury risk. And I think it's vitally important. I think, Coach, guys can lift up until 13, 14 with a broomstick. If you're holding that movement and doing it correctly and creating the tension, you're going to be out of breath after 5-10 reps anyway.
Well, that's the thing. The other thing is also what I've found, I've become a serial videographer.
Yes.
I take a video, I'll say, this is what it looks like when you do it. Now, let's take a look. And they'll generally pick it up. And I found just a simple thing, look at your reflection. If there isn't a mirror, look at your reflection in the glass. Take a kettlebell and just see. And generally, they do
where
get
you're
it.
hinging,
And
where
that's
you're
with
hinging.
executives as well. That's
Yeah,
people
yeah.
of in their 60s. It's the same thing. Just create that awareness, that biofeedback.
Yeah.
And they get it. And once they've got it, then all of a sudden you get these progressions, these fantastic progressions.
Yes.
But it's just learning those basic skills. And I'm horribly pedantic with that. I look and I redo it. And I say, let's do that again. Let's check it. Let's go slightly lighter. Oh, but I can lift this weight. Yes, I know. But let's see if you can lift that weight for 1. Let's see if you can lift a bit lighter for 4.
Yeah.
Let's take a look. Let's see what they look like. Okay, rep number 1, this is what it looked like. Rep number 2, now you see what's happening there. Okay, lights dawns.
Absolutely.
Back to the other thing, you talk about the disadvantaged communities
Yes,
with
that's-
that.
yeah.
Now, you'll remember what happened at the Wanderers. You actually made the offer.
Yeah.
You said you will take your coaches to disadvantaged cricket communities
Yeah.
and you will provide that service free of charge.
Yeah, and with the calisthenic stuff, which
And
sort of
you
jumped out.
offered the whole package.
Yeah.
And basically it all fell down on politics.
Yeah.
Very frustratingly, but that was the climate at the time. When I talk about obedience versus excellence.
Yeah.
Once
Yeah.
again, they had a gilt-edged opportunity in their hands and they turned it down. And then what happened was I'd invite young coaches, say, let me just show you. I even invited them once to Bullies.
Right.
I said, it's a Saturday afternoon. I'm not going to charge you. Just come along and I'll just show you basics that you can do. Even body weight, broomstick, whatever. You don't need the fancy equipment. Just even running drills. Say you got 15 meters. What running drills can you do in 15 meters? And we had 3 or 4 guys who came who knew me anyway.
Right,
And who
right.
knew my methods.
Yes.
And the others, it just was and they actually said to me, I said, are there any others coming? And then the answer was, they're just too lazy. So whether the message never got out to them, or
Right.
whether that is the truth, it's
so-
just unfortunately, it's just not happening.
So I think, the obedience versus excellence. Excellence is what benefits the team, and what then benefits the province, benefits the country, uplifts everybody. Obedience only serves a few masters. So is there not, or have you found the spirit in sport? And we can look at a couple of different sports in terms of obedience versus excellence. And how big a hindrance is it?
We're actually speaking from a very fortunate position now, because we are actually in the position where we can possibly win 2 World Cups
Yeah,
in a
absolutely.
very short
How
space
crazy
of
was
time.
Saturday? It was
Oh,
fun.
fantastic! Yeah,
Did
it
you
was
see
amazing.
Rusty celebrating?
Oh, yes.
He nearly hit the ceiling when he jumped up.
I actually,
Wonderful to see.
one of my contacts is an ex-South African who's one of the top forwards coaches in the world.
Yes.
And he's based in France. He coaches one of the French teams. And he was telling me, he actually told me before the game, he said, watch the second half. He said, the Springboks, he said, are going to start dominating the scrums because it's slow poison. He says, all they need is to get close to the line. At some stage, if they
get
get
it.
close to the line, they're going to get a try.
Yeah.
Once they get a try, all you need is a scrum in England's half, and then Pollard's going to put it over because the scrum is going to end up being a penalty.
Yeah, yeah.
And that's exactly what happens. I even phoned you afterwards and said, you're a clairvoyant. He says, I've seen this before.
But it's
And then
that's how discipline now with the Springboks is exceptional. compared
It's
to what it was years
they've got a very good system.
Yeah.
They've been through their hard times. They've basically played the rubbish out of their game.
Yeah,
We can
yeah.
all talk about them losing to Italy, losing to France, not to France,
Ireland.
to Japan.
Oh, yeah.
But these were all very necessary events because then you start thinking, we've got to do something, guys. We've got to sort this out. Plus, they've got a phenomenal school system to back them up.
Yes.
With our cricket, we have genuinely played the rubbish out of our game.
Right.
Just we don't know when it's going to surface again.
Okay.
And this was something I spoke to the Dutch assistant coach, also an ex-South African, used to play for the Lions. Spoke to him the other day, and he said the Proteas were on track to beat them, but then they stopped bowling to their field. They set a field and bowled to them. So he said his guys were just hitting at will.
Yeah.
And he said, what a lucky break. And he said that's just a breakdown of discipline that unfortunately comes from either overconfidence or just thinking, we got the game in the bag. Let's just let's just mop them up. And he says it ain't over until that last ball is bowled.
Yeah, absolutely.
So yes, so that's where we are right now. Bafana, talking about the soccer, it's a similar thing. Is the late Shoes Moshweo, who I became very friendly with. I also lectured to him. He said there must be 2 dozen level 3 soccer coaches roaming the streets of Alexandra without a job, but that's because they aren't connected.
Right.
He says they're brilliant coaches, they're not connected.
Okay.
So a lot of the problem there, you'll get the job when you got the connections, and also not necessarily the best.
Right.
Look, I've had some players. I've had players coming to me from Sundowns, from Pirates, from a couple of other teams, and the complaint has always been the same. Well, the trainer's busy talking to his girlfriend on the phone, and he just said, right, do your 10 push-ups. I'll go out there and I'll do my 10 push-ups. The guy behind is sitting there. Then when the trainer looks there, 7, 8, 9. So he says, so what can you expect?
Yeah.
So unfortunately, there are gaps in the system like that. Make no mistake, there are teams who do it very well. But unfortunately, it's not universal.
Okay.
So that's really where we are.
I think when it becomes, the interest is in getting the team to perform as well as possible, to benefit the province, the country, the club, whatever. That's really where it should be. But I suppose also people, it's the difference between a job and a passion, which is a big thing. So, Coach, you've worked with some of the top athletes in the world. You've coached for decades. If we're talking to some of the kids in the more disadvantaged communities, the communities that are challenged in terms of access to coaching and equipment, how important or how valuable is calisthenics, is plyometrics? How well can you do with just your body weight?
They do it anyway, don't they?
Correct.
They go out there, they run, they jump, this is called play.
Yeah.
And this is what they do so well.
That's it.
And if it's modified and if it's showed to them, you do that really nicely. Now let's see if we can do it better.
Yeah.
You jump that high. Let's see if you can jump that high. Now you know what you do. This is how your feet should be. This is how you should hold your back. Now when you get up off a chair, you see how much better it is if you don't put your back right down. Little things like that. And once you create that awareness, then what you really need, what I've found works well, is if you've got a role model or two.
Right.
And if it's someone they can identify with. It was quite interesting the other day I noticed a couple of the kids who were walking around with, they were from, I think they were from one of the schools, one of the disadvantaged areas. And they all had this yogurt type mix, similar to, what's that, that's Macau.
Yes.
But it had a picture of Lucanio on it.
Okay.
So that was, they all very proudly said, it's good for him. If it's good for him, it's good for us.
Yes.
Remember the Ronaldo advert?
100%.
But so it just showed you've got somebody to follow, somebody you can identify with. It really means a lot.
I think athletes in challenging situations shouldn't be disheartened by not having access. Great coaching, great equipment is a huge benefit, but they should never be disheartened by if they only have their body weight to start with. Because don't not train because you don't have a gym. Don't not train because you don't have a coach.
But didn't we all experience that during COVID, where we were all giving programs? And literally, I was giving simple programs out. I tried to make a competition out of it.
Yes.
But unfortunately,
Of course you did, Coach.
100% buy-in of it. We got a couple of teams in England.
Yes.
We got in America. Got a couple in South Africa. But it was basically simple: 10 push-ups. I think it was four 20-meter sprints, 10 sit-ups, 4 20-meter sprints, 4 whatever. A simple thing like that. The whole thing lasted about 5 or 6 minutes.
Okay. And
say, right, now do a 3-minute rest between, do 3 sets, give us your 3, and show it to us so that you can't cheat with the movements. And certainly locally it worked quite well.
Right.
Because what happened also at the same time is there were qualified people who were giving home programs that were actually quite complex. And also, you mentioned jumping. They were telling kids, some of who'd never trained properly a day in their lives, is do 15 plyometric jumps onto a box.
Right. Yeah.
So like some of them were saying, they'd send a message to me. I don't have a box. Can I jump up onto my bed? Okay, there must be a... And you can sort of work ways around it. But then you start figuring, have you ever been taught how to jump properly? Because now
And
you're
how
not
to
just,
get-
you're
how
not
to
just
get
ju-
off.
You're not just jumping
Yeah.
in play. You're jumping 15 times up
Yeah,
and down.
yeah.
Were you told to step up, or were you told to step down,
Yeah.
or were you told to jump down? No, they didn't say.
And that's where the
And
damage
unfortunately,
comes from,
when
yeah.
you do approach those people, then they don't see it as constructive criticism. They see it as a challenge.
Right,
And
yeah.
then they pull back.
Yeah, it gets their back up.
Absolutely, yeah.
100%. Coach, are there any fun stories sort of you'd like to share as we wind up? So I know you have to get back to the gym, and I also promised you lunch. So,
There's just so many.
Yeah.
24 years is
yeah.
is a
How has
long
it been training at some of the hotels and stuff around the world where you have one pink plastic kettlebell, a 7-kilo dumbbell, some sort of handle that the machine doesn't exist anymore,
Usually what we do is we look for a pool, and we used to take the little rugby ball.
Yes.
And we get a game going, some sort of game.
Right.
And it sort of worked out initially to be this very clean game of, no, you're not going to tackle each other, just pass, and
Yes.
there's the goals, and there's the
Yeah.
goals.
And then-
but eventually it was a free-for-all, and guys
Yeah.
were getting dunked.
Yeah,
But they
yeah.
absolutely loved it.
Yes, yes.
And then often what would happen afterwards was then it would create little competition things. Hey, let's see who can hold their breath the longest. Let's see who can dive in and how many lengths they can
Lengths,
swim.
yeah.
So, and it all becomes pretty beneficial from that point of view.
Absolutely.
And
I mean, that's the play element again,
that's
right? You don't
that's the
realize
whole
you're training.
thing.
You don't realize you're working.
And also at that stage, when you're in a hotel, you don't need to do heavy squats. You don't need to do unless you've got a person who has really thrived on that. Because we have found there are bowlers who like to do 2 heavy deadlifts before they go out in the morning. So
Yes.
2 deadlifts, 2 jumps to sprints,
Yeah,
done,
yeah,
finished.
Yeah. Fire
And
up the nervous system and
absolutely, and get on with, and it works an absolute charm. Or else someone would come into me. Kagiso Rabada was the best for this. He'd say, right, Jeff, can I have something for 5 minutes? So I'd say, I'm setting the clock. This is what I'm giving you. Blah, blah, blah. Whatever you haven't done in 5 minutes, you stop. And he'd do it. If you didn't finish 5 minutes, I'm nearly done. Can I finish it? No. No, next time.
Yeah.
I'm going to finish it next time.
Yeah.
Sure, no problem. That's next time.
Yeah.
Get onto the feet. Go warm up. So once it becomes an element where there's the challenge, because they say variety is the spice of life.
Absolutely.
With these guys, challenge is the spice of life.
Yes.
And we all see it.
Yeah.
Is that throw any of them a challenge, they're going to rise to it.
And absolutely.
And not necessarily with the best guy, but they'll take on somebody.
Yeah.
So what I'd always do at the Wanderers,
The
every
beloved
week,
Jacob's ladder.
oh, well, the Jacob's ladder, I didn't have much experience
Yeah.
because that was up there and I was
Yeah,
down
yeah.
there. But my thing would be with the rower or with the
Yes.
stairs. And say you've got those tunnel stairs at the Wanderers,
Yes.
who everybody's familiar with.
Yep, absolutely.
So I would have a thing, let's
I mean,
see.
the tunnels at the stairs to the top field, that was enough for me.
Oh,
I'm a
yes.
power lifter.
Powerlifters and stairs don't
Yeah.
necessarily
No.
go hand in hand. But a set of 4.
Yes.
Take a time. And I'd always monitor it because I'd be the starter and the stopper. So they couldn't come and say, well, I'm not going to go, but let's just give Jeff a time. And then you'd find that you'd get a list.
Yes.
And you'd get the same people towards the top. But then the people down the list, they wouldn't necessarily challenge those, but they'd find a victim.
Yeah, absolutely.
So they'd walk into the change room and say, Vian Mulder. Okay, Vian,
Yeah.
right, I'm taking you on the stairs today.
Yeah.
And Vian would invariably say, okay, I'll see your time, then I'll ask Jeff to take me next.
Yes.
So you'd have this, and once there
Fantastic.
was this, then they'd buy into it.
Right.
If it was just a thing, this is what you have to do.
Yeah.
Do this, then do that, then do that, then do that. Then it's in one ear, out the other
We're
ear.
not East German.
Well, from
Yeah.
another point of view, we
Yeah.
don't all have their
Yeah.
coaches who've got the drug boxes. But
Yeah,
anyway.
but that's also true, 100%.
But,
Okay, yeah.
It's and I just found that, and there's always going to be a situation where there are people who aren't used to your methods and they're going to like somebody else's methods.
Yes.
And that's absolutely fine. As long as at the end of the day, they can do my stuff. I'm
Yeah,
happy.
yeah.
I think your biggest fan of your methods was Rassie van der Dussen, and he still is.
Okay, yeah.
And,
Lovely
Oh yeah, no, he's a nice guy.
And like they all are, Via, Nick, Rassie,
Yes,
all of,
yeah, they're all good guys.
yeah.
And so to me, that was great. You know, if he wants to do one of yours, and that was great. Look, if somebody was going to come over there and take 1 kilogram dumbbells and start doing this, I'd say, what are you actually trying to do?
No, you see, you're warming up for the stairs.
But if you knew that you had fellow professionals who gave programs in all good faith and they worked, hey, variety, fantastic.
Absolutely. Because it's for the benefit of the athlete,
Well, exactly.
which is the benefit of the team,
Yes.
the province, the
Yes.
country. Absolutely. So how do people find you? I mean, you're still coaching. How do people get in touch? We can put your details in the comments description below. But so tell us a little bit about the work that you're doing now.
I'm specializing now. I still take elite athletes. I've had quite a few school kids, so I'm getting quite
Future elite
familiar with it.
athletes.
Well, hopefully.
Yeah.
And then I do longevity. I like people 40 above,
Okay.
and making sure that by the time they're my age, they can do stuff.
Okay.
So that's a big thing for me. I've learnt a lot about that.
Right.
Because I had perceptions before, which now that I'm doing it properly now, I realize that these people have got the same drive and determination as top athletes.
Absolutely.
So that's been fantastic. So most of my work I do out of Barbell Bullies in
yes.
Sunninghill. I have an email. I'm on social media. It's Jeff Lunsky on Facebook. There's only one of me.
Yep.
And it's Jeff Lunsky Training on Instagram.
All right.
And then I think my cell number's somewhere on those.
Okay. All right. Perfect. So I think for people who, what are the concerns that people have? Let's so particularly with over 40s. I mean, we can talk about the over 40s and we can talk about the athletes. Those who are sort of over 40 and they're starting to worry. What are the primary things you see people are worrying about? Why? And then they come to see you.
The normal thing is I've put on all this weight.
Okay. Yeah.
That's the first thing, and then you get some that are
And
very
they don't know how. No one knows.
No,
It
no.
doesn't make sense.
That's-
It's appeared suddenly.
And
Yeah.
I eat it. I only have healthy takeaways.
Yes. Yeah.
And then little things like when I can't get up off a chair properly anymore. I'm finding I'm getting my lower back's getting sore. When I drive long distances, my lower back's getting sore. And I get that with athletes as well. I've had that a lot with athletes. I
Okay.
can't get up off the couch properly. And then after 2 weeks of deadlifting, then the pain's gone. So
Yeah.
you start wondering, well, now you're using things that you just haven't been using
You hadn't
before.
been used. And I think that's so important that this stuff can be reversed through training. Like we can start to feel younger again, improve agility, mobility, flexibility, strength.
Well, I was actually saying to one of my clients today, she's just turned 50, and I actually said to her, I said, the workout
you're
we've
a
done...
youngster.
She's still a
I
youngster.
thought we were talking
absolutely.
about the older clients.
No,
Oh, yeah,
she's a
a
youngster. And I said, well, the workout that we did today is actually more an athletic workout than an executive type workout. You don't need to do that sort of stuff. You can do the challenging stuff. It does work for you.
Right.
I've had the case where I've had a 54-year-old woman training with a King Edward's opening bowler.
Okay.
And the guy couldn't keep up with her. Eventually, what was happening, she was doing stuff and he was leaning against the back raise.
Yeah.
And I said, are you okay? And he points at her and he says, how? So I said, well, she's been coming to me consistently.
Yeah.
She can move. She can do the stuff.
Yeah.
She knows how to pace herself. She hasn't now gone out. That's another thing that happens, that you probably find this, is that if the guys, even the professionals, if they're struggling with their training, just put a woman in the room to train with them and all of a sudden up goes the intensity.
Yeah.
And we've had some funny stories with that. We had a wonderful one with the St. David's schoolboys coming to the Wanderers the one day, and in walks Rassie's wife
Yes.
for a session with you.
Oh, yes.
Now all of a sudden, the guys had
yeah.
10 kilograms of the shoulder pressing. Off down went the 10, up come the 20.
Yeah,
and they're doing this,
yeah.
and Rassie's wife actually, come, let me help you guys. It was wonderful.
It was a lot of fun, that, Coach.
Absolutely.
Absolutely. Oh, wonderful. Coach, thank you for your time.
Thanks for having me, Nick.
We'll definitely have you back on, because I know there's
Super.
so much information out there. Maybe there's anyone that you'd also like to bring. We can have a little bit of banter. You think about
Ooh, I've got
that.
some interesting people.
Okay. All right, I'm thinking your son as well.
Mark,
Yeah?
he's
'Cause
my
there's
budding
some good stories.
psychologist.
Yeah, 100%.
I've got a clinical psychologist for a wife. I've
Yes.
got a budding psychologist as a son.
Yeah.
And when we talk about psychology at the dinner table,
Yeah.
guess who's the most knowledgeable? By
You.
a mile.
100%.
No. I'm
You.
a
No,
spectator.
Yeah.
I'm purely a
So
spectator.
Marky.
Of course he is.
Yeah, 100%.
You know, what is the-
That's fantastic. That's awesome. Yeah.
No,
awesome.
he's a
Yeah.
barrel, and he's a strong guy. I mean, he's still got his silver at nationals.
Yeah.
But now he's concentrating on his studies. So he still did his lifts.
Okay, you can come
So
back.
he's fine. Yeah.
You know, I think as we were chatting about Dan Oppenheim, I mean, Dan's 147, I believe, and he's still competing. And
Yeah, Dan and my combined age must be about 270 or something.
so, but that's the word, like still competing on the international stage at that
Yes.
age.
Oh,
I mean, what is Dan? 82, 83,
Dan is
84?
now 78.
Sorry, Dan, 78.
So, be
okay,
kind.
my apologies. No, there was a mistake.
But it's
Yeah,
just wonderful
okay.
to see the enthusiasm
Yeah.
that he puts
Oh,
into it.
And one of the most passionate powerlifters
Yes.
I've ever met.
Oh, the most
He
wonderful
truly
sight
loves
you
the
should have
sport.
seen the one time. I had South Africa's national squash team for the World Games. They came to Bullies just to learn how to lift properly. And so Dan came along to take a look. So he was asking, we're just asking everybody, what do you do?
Yes.
And the one guy happened to mention that he did squats. So Dan said, right, show me how you do squats. So the guy starts doing squats, and Dan says, no, we must teach you from scratch. No, and this poor guy is the number 2 squash player in South Africa.
Yeah.
I do these every day. No, start from scratch. And poor Dan, because after he felt bad, he said, do you think I offended him?
Yeah.
I said, no, maybe you've taught him a bit of a lesson.
Lesson, yeah.
So
you could
it
become the
was-
number 1 player in South Africa.
Yeah. So it was all taken in good spirit.
Lovely. All right, good. So, Coach, then, good. We'll definitely have you back.
Fantastic.
We'll chat about some guys that you want to bring through, and it'll be a lot of fun.
Great.
All right, awesome.
Thank you so much for having me.
Coach.
I really appreciate it.
I'm still, the COVID.
Oh,
thing
yes,
gotta get
yeah.
used to. All right, cool. Guys, thank you for tuning in. And if you have any questions for Coach and you've missed the live stream, leave them in the comments below and we'll forward them to Coach. And I'll share the link with you as well.
Super.
I mean, it's up now on Facebook. YouTube, sorry. All right, cool. Thanks, Coach.
All right. Cheers, guys.
Bye, guys.